Hi, today we're going to dive right in and take you on a driving tour. Well, at least about what it's like to drive in Portugal. Some people may tell you that driving in Portugal is a dream come true. That might be my husband. For me, it might be a little different. So I'm going to let my husband, Rob, take off with just a few points about driving in Portugal and some things you may or may not be used to.
Yeah, thanks. Like she said, some people will enjoy driving in Portugal and some will not. It's different than at least where we came from. It's also, there's laws that are the same and laws that are different. I guess that's true of everywhere across the world, certainly true here. Some will just enjoy it. Like me, I like driving on traffic circles and I like seeing the kind of countryside that's here. And some will just not like it. First, I'll just say that you drive on the right side of the road in
Thank
Portugal.
God.
Like most of Europe, but not like England or Australia. I'll say also that the roads are generally not on a grid pattern here in Portugal. They seem to follow topography and they follow features like rivers and coastlines. And some of them follow historical patterns that no one can explain. But it's easy to get lost, but that's, I guess, what GPS was made for.
And leads to lots of adventures. Actually, some pretty cool ones.
Yeah. The freeways here are newer and they're in good condition and they're easy and fun to drive.
Except the tolls.
Yeah, there are tolls on a lot of the roads. I think that it's not such a problem. They're not that expensive. And if you're going to be here for a while, you can get the little transponder that you put on the windshield of your car and you just drive through and it automatically registers that you went through, and then you get automatically billed to your bank account through an automatic payment, and you just basically don't even know it's happening. If you don't have a transponder, you have to stop at a lot of little toll booths and put money in a bucket.
Yeah, the part I don't really care for about them, my husband loves it. I think he was born to be a drag racer or something, is that some of the toll booths are electronic and just read, and you don't have to go through aisles to get through. And then there are the bigger ones where you actually go through the aisles, and if you have the transponder on your car, then you just go through the lane for that transponder and it bills you automatically. And like he said, if not, you actually have to pay the cash. But they're very tight. And that's my biggest complaint about roads in Portugal. But I will get used to them almost 4 years in.
You're required to get down to 60 kilometers per hour as you go through the narrow toll booths. I think Crystal would get down to about 20 kilometers per hour.
I would probably stop, actually.
Another good thing about the freeways here in Portugal is that they have periodic rest stops and service stops, and each one has a restaurant and a gas station and restrooms, and they're very easy to get on and off the freeway for, and it's just a very convenient thing that makes it easy to travel going from place to place.
I would say as women, we are really thrilled about this because if you use the little bathrooms on the back of the gas station, they're clean, but they are what you would expect at a gas station. But the stores that you go into have different types of coffees. They even sell wine. They sell products. They have very clean restrooms. And so you can really go in there. It's very clean. And this is really something we weren't used to.
So it really is a restful stop.
Yeah, it's great.
The roads in the towns, again, are, I think, sometimes fun. They're always an adventure. They're winding and they're narrow, and there's buildings right up close to where the cars are. I think that the roads were built first hundreds of years ago, back when there were horses and buggies and not cars. Understandably, they're not that wide, and there's a lot of times they're on cobblestones, so it's a little bit of a rough go, but it's also very enjoyable to drive on those for me. I just feel, you see the historic buildings and the churches, and it's just an adventure always to drive through the towns. I like doing that.
Yeah, one of the funniest stories we have, and I think I've shared this before, but we were going to a little village to have a really great lunch with my favorite little cat. On the way back, we decided to take a little adventure, and so you can call it a wrong turn or an adventure, but we ended up in a place called Burgau, and it was a cute little town, very small, and we started
right on the ocean.
going through the road, and it got smaller and smaller as we got down towards town. And then all of a sudden, that was high tide. We were literally in the ocean on the road. And I wish I would have had the facility to take a video at that point, but I was screaming. I was screaming to Rob, we're in the ocean, we're in the ocean. But we got out okay, and it's a really fun story to look back.
It was just a certain place in the road where it turned and went parallel to the beach, and yes, the water was lapping up against the wheels. It was, it was definitely
pretty
high
high,
tide.
actually.
But it was just another adventure in Portugal.
So let's talk a little bit about parking.
Another reason why it's not a bad idea to have a smaller car is because the parking spaces are very small, generally speaking. There are more smaller cars than big cars in Portugal, so it's a common thing. You also have to search a bit to find parking, especially during tourist season. It gets pretty difficult. A lot of times you end up finding little parking spots that may or may not be official parking spots, and oftentimes you end up parking parallel, so you'll want to work on your parallel parking skills.
Yeah, make sure you get the little ticket that you're supposed to get on your car if you're on a side parking, because they do enforce it. So you don't want to be getting a ticket there.
A lot of places in the urban spaces are pay parking, and you go ahead and park, you walk over to the pay station, you put in some money or use your credit card, get a little ticket, put it on your dash, and off you go. Let's talk about some administrative things like driver's licenses. If you're less than 60 years old, then you can generally use a driver's license from your home country and everything's fine. If you're over 60 like me, then you'll need to exchange your driver's license from another country and get a Portuguese driver's license. And then if you're over 70, you'll need to get a medical exam and have the doctor submit it in order to verify that you're healthy enough to drive. And a lot of that involves eye test and making sure your eyesight is good. It hasn't been a problem. Car registration, that's something, if you own a car, you have to get it registered or get renewal every year. And you'll need to get an inspection every 2 years. If you buy a new car, you get 4 years before your first inspection. But it actually makes a lot of sense to me that there's safer cars on the road pretty much at all times.
We didn't know this rule, and we didn't have a new car. We bought a used car, so it was a little bit of a surprise for us, but he's got it down great now. So
car ownership is really not a problem, I found, here at all.
The only thing I would say about that is that they do put it in one person's name, which might be different from where you're from. Definitely was different from where we're from. And so we couldn't put it in both of our names. Actually, we have certain things in Rob's name, certain things in my name. And so that's just a little something to know.
And it ends up not really meaning anything, but it's something that was just a quirk that we had to get used to.
Yeah.
So overall, I'd just say that driving in Portugal is pretty easy and enjoyable for me, but not for everybody. But I'd say that the drivers are courteous and there doesn't seem to be any tension on the road. It's a pretty easy thing to do, in my opinion.
Yeah. You know what's kind of shocking to me? Even the times I've driven and probably should have been honked at. People are so kind. You don't hear much honking at all unless it's like something emergent is going to happen. It's going to, there's an accident that's going to happen, someone trying to prevent it. I've never been flipped off on the road here whatsoever. I don't think either of us have.
No, that just doesn't happen.
It kind of doesn't happen here. And maybe in the bigger cities, I don't know, but we've never had it happen. So
something else I just thought of, motorcycles. They have their own set of rules apparently here. In Portugal. You can be driving along and all of a sudden, zoom, motorcycle flies by on either the left or right. They seem to be allowed to pass cars at any time, whenever they think it's safe. And it was a little startling at first, but you get used to it after a while.
Some people get used to it and some people just get heart exercise every time we drive.
If you are interested in riding a motorcycle, it's definitely easier to find parking spaces and it's easier to get around on them. But safety, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, a lot of scooters also. Speed limits, they're enforced here.
Yeah, we have found that they're are speed limits. They're well signed, so if you're paying attention, you know what the speed limits are, but they will be enforced oftentimes. And they even have some radar stations where your speed is measured. And they also have situations where the radars will check your time of duration going from point A to B and then calculate what your speed must have been and give you a ticket if you've been speeding during that period of time.
That was different for us.
So that's a little something to get used to. But I guess you shouldn't be speeding anyway, right?
That's right. So again, we would just like to say that the drivers are very courteous here. As a pedestrian, also, it's amazing about how well people stop for you, wave to you, let you go by. And we've just known nothing but kindness here in Portugal.
And there are a lot of pedestrians, especially driving around towns. You have to kind of give them the right of way because these towns were designed for pedestrians first and cars second.
And horses. Yeah. Horses. So thanks again for joining us today. Remember, we do offer consultations if you're thinking about moving here or you're just planning a trip. We're really not trying to make money. There is a cost to it. We're just trying to keep the channel going. So if that's of interest to you, the link will be below. So thanks again for watching.
Bye.
Ate ja.